There comes a moment in every life when tolerance becomes betrayal, not of others, but of yourself. You weren't born to bend endlessly, to carry the weight of others' chaos while yours is left unheard. No, there is a line, a sacred boundary where dignity lives and where silence must end. Some behaviors are not mistakes, they are weapons. Wrapped in charm, softened by excuses, repeated until you question your own sanity. Today we draw the line, not in anger, but in truth. These are the 7 behaviors no soul should ever tolerate. Not once, not ever. Silence is not strength when injustice thrives. They told you to stay quiet, to be the bigger person, to walk away instead of speak up. They said, don't stir the pot, don't make it worse. And so you didn't. You bit your tongue, you swallowed your pain, and you told yourself that being silent made you stronger, that holding it all in was a form of discipline. But deep down, something inside you began to dim, because silence, when faced with repeated injustice, is not strength. It is erosion. It is the slow, invisible unraveling of your spirit. There's a lie that strong people endure quietly, that real wisdom is in letting things go. And yes, sometimes it is. Sometimes silence is wisdom. But when someone crosses your boundaries again and again, when someone gaslights you until you question your reality, when someone chips away at your self-worth in the name of just joking or you're too sensitive, that is not the moment to be silent. That is the moment to rise. Because silence in the face of cruelty is not peace. It is permission. They want you quiet because your voice is a threat, because your clarity shines a light on what they've kept hidden in the shadows. And so, they mask their offenses in politeness, in false kindness, in hollow apologies that come only after they've done the damage. They don't change their behavior, they just change their tone. And still you stay silent. Because you don't want to seem confrontational, because you're tired of the battles, because a part of you hopes they'll change if you just keep showing them your good heart. But you're not here to prove your worth through pain. You're not here to be someone's emotional punching bag just because you're patient. Silence is only strength when it is a choice rooted in wisdom, not when it's a cage built from fear. If you're afraid to speak, afraid to set a boundary, afraid to say this is not acceptable, then your silence is no longer yours. It belongs to them. It has become their tool. And you? You have been reduced to a background character in your own life story. There are people who will exploit your silence like currency. They will test your tolerance inch by inch. They will take your stillness as weakness, your quiet as agreement. And the longer you let it slide, the more permission you grant. Until one day, you wake up wondering how you got here, how you became so small in your own home, your own relationship. And the answer will echo back in every moment you stayed silent when you should have spoken, every time you said it's okay when it wasn't. Every time you turned the other cheek, not out of grace, but out of fear. Not every battle needs your words, but some do. Some require a voice that shakes, a voice that rises anyway. A voice that says, this ends here, because silence, when injustice thrives, is not strength. It is surrender. Boundaries are not aggression, they are protection. They'll call you difficult the moment you say no. The moment you draw a line and refuse to be stretched beyond your limits, suddenly you're the problem. You're too harsh, too distant, too cold. They won't say it out loud, but you'll feel it in the way they flinch at your firmness, in the way they guilt-trip you when you decide to protect your peace. But make no mistake, setting boundaries is not an act of war, it is an act of survival. You are not being cruel. You are building a gate to guard what's sacred inside you. There are people who are comfortable only when you are uncomfortable, who thrive when your world is spinning so they can stay centered in theirs. These are the people who will test your limits, not to understand them, but to break them. They see your kindness and confuse it with weakness. They see your generosity and assume it's endless. And the moment you pause, the moment you reclaim your time, your space, your breath, they look at you like you've changed. But you haven't changed. You've awakened. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are filters to keep harm out. They are the quiet, steady reminder that you are not responsible for how someone reacts to your self-respect. You are not cold for refusing to be drained. You are not heartless for saying, "This is as far as you go." The people who love you, truly love you, will never feel threatened by your boundaries. Only those who benefited from your lack of them will take offense. And they will take offense. Because boundaries disrupt patterns. Patterns that kept you overworked, underappreciated, over-explaining, constantly apologizing for simply existing. Patterns that trained you to believe love meant sacrifice, that care meant exhaustion, that your worth was measured by how small you could make yourself for others. But boundaries say no to all of that. Boundaries say, "I deserve to breathe too," and that statement alone can shake the very ground those people stand on. You were not created to be available to everyone at all times. You were not put on this earth to be liked by those who exploit you, nor to be understood by those who refuse to listen. The truth is, you're not obligated to remain in spaces that drain your spirit just to avoid conflict. You're not required to keep proving your value to people who only value what they can take from you. Some people won't like your boundaries because they expose how much they were taking. But that discomfort is theirs to carry, not yours. You are not unkind for refusing to be mistreated. You are not overreacting when you stop tolerating disrespect dressed up as humor, love, or tradition. And you are not wrong for finally saying enough. Because boundaries aren't built in bitterness. They're born from clarity, from the realization that your time, your energy, your heart are not open highways for anyone to travel freely. They are sacred spaces deserving of care, of consent, of mutual respect. Repeated disrespect is not a misunderstanding, it's a pattern. The first time they spoke over you, maybe you thought they were just excited. The second time, you assumed they didn't notice. The third, you started shrinking. You laughed it off, told yourself not to be sensitive, gave them the benefit of the doubt again and again, until doubt was all that was left. That's how it begins, with excuses made in the name of grace. But grace, without awareness, becomes a leash. And repeated disrespect is not a misunderstanding, it is a message that says, "I can treat you this way and you'll let me." Patterns are louder than words, and when someone continues to ignore your boundaries, invalidate your feelings, dismiss your ideas, or mock your pain, they're not accidentally hurting you. They're establishing a rhythm, one that trains you to question your instincts, one that makes you second-guess what you heard, what you saw, what you felt. And the more you stay, the more you adapt. You begin explaining your worth, justifying your reactions, apologizing for your very existence. They'll tell you it's not that serious, that you're imagining things, that you're reading into it too much. But patterns don't lie. A single incident may be a slip, but when it becomes a cycle, it's a strategy. It's a method of keeping control while dodging accountability. And when you confront them, they don't apologize. They deflect. They play the victim. They turn the spotlight onto your tone, your timing, your delivery, anything but their behavior. You find yourself rehearsing conversations before you have them, choosing your words carefully so you don't set them off, tiptoeing around landmines you never planted. That's not peace. That's survival. And the most dangerous part? You start thinking it's normal. That this is just how people are. That love always comes with confusion. That friendship always includes competition. That respect is something you must earn by staying silent. But that's not respect. That's manipulation masquerading as connection. True respect is consistent. It doesn't vanish when no one's watching. It doesn't change tone depending on the room. It doesn't lift you up in private and tear you down in public. When someone truly values you, their actions follow their words. Their intentions match their impact. You don't have to guess how they feel about you because they show you with how they speak to you, how they listen, how they honor your presence. But when someone disrespects you repeatedly and you continue to tolerate it, it teaches them they can keep doing it without consequence. You're not difficult for noticing the pattern. You're not dramatic for speaking the truth. You're awake. You're finally seeing what they hoped you'd never see. That their behavior was never about a bad day or stress or miscommunication. It was about power. And every time you let it slide, they tighten their grip. Not because you're weak, but because you're kind, because you're hopeful, because you believed in change. But some people don't change. They just get better at hiding their intentions until the damage is done. Emotional manipulation masquerades as care. It starts with concern. They ask where you've been, who you were with, why you didn't respond sooner. At first, it feels like attention, like someone finally sees you, finally cares. But over time, that concern begins to feel suffocating. It no longer sounds like love. It sounds like control dressed in affection. And that's the trick of emotional manipulation. It doesn't show up as cruelty at the beginning. It arrives in softness, wrapped in worry, laced with just enough sweetness to make you doubt your discomfort. They want you dependent, not on their kindness, but on their approval. So they praise you when you comply and withdraw when you don't. They give you affection like it's a reward, not a right. You find yourself trying harder to be understood, to be enough, to keep them happy. But the target always moves. What pleased them yesterday irritates them today. And slowly, your peace becomes their possession. You no longer act from your own truth. You act from fear of upsetting them. Manipulators are rarely loud. They don't need to be. They plant quiet doubts in your mind and watch them grow. They twist your words, then blame you for being confusing. They make hurtful comments, then say you're too sensitive when you react. They shift the narrative until you're apologizing for things they did. And the more you bend, the more they reshape your reality. You begin to mistrust your instincts, question your worth, doubt your sanity. That's the power of emotional manipulation. It doesn't break you, it erodes you. They'll call it love, but real love doesn't keep you in a constant state of confusion. Real care doesn't demand you shrink to maintain harmony. Love doesn't come with ultimatums, scorekeeping, or silent treatments. It doesn't make you anxious, or ashamed, or small. But a manipulator will convince you otherwise. They'll say they're doing it for your own good, that you're lucky they're still here, that no one else would tolerate you the way they do. And somewhere in that storm, you start to believe them. You begin hiding parts of yourself to avoid conflict. You keep secrets, not because you're dishonest, but because you're scared of how they'll twist your truth. You start feeling guilty for wanting space, for setting boundaries, for having your own needs. And every time you try to pull away, they reel you back in with charm, with apologies, with just enough kindness to confuse the clarity that was beginning to form in your heart. But the cycle always returns. The affection is temporary. The control is constant. They don't want a relationship. They want a mirror, someone who reflects back only what they want to see. The moment you show emotion they can't control, opinions they can't shape, strength they can't diminish, the mask slips. They withdraw, punish, guilt trip, or play the victim. And you're left wondering what you did wrong, when in truth, all you did was begin to reclaim yourself. Emotional manipulation doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. And those whispers are the most dangerous, because they make you question the sound of your own voice. Walking away is not weakness, it's mastery. There's a silence that follows after you walk away, a silence that many fear, not because it's lonely, but because it's honest. Because in that quiet, there are no more distractions, no more excuses, no more illusions, just you, your truth, and the aftermath of your courage. They'll say you gave up too soon, that you should have tried harder, that you abandoned something that could have been saved. But they never saw the nights you stayed longer than you should have, the conversations you had with yourself just to survive one more day in a place that no longer felt like home. Walking away is not quitting. It's not defeat. It's knowing the difference between what heals you and what harms you. It's realizing that not every bond deserves preservation. Not every connection is sacred, and not every person who walks beside you is walking with you. Sometimes they're walking on you, draining you, undermining you, smiling at your face while chiseling away at your spirit behind the scenes, and yet you stayed. Because you hoped, because you believed, because you were taught that endurance equals loyalty. But endurance without direction is just suffering with a purpose you never chose. They never tell you how heavy it feels to stay where you're not growing, how you begin to shrink just to make peace, how you stop sharing your thoughts because they're always dismissed, how you laugh at jokes that cut deep because you don't want to be too serious. They never talk about the quiet mourning that happens when you realize the version of you that used to be vibrant is now dimmed by the weight of emotional debt you were never meant to carry. They only see the moment you leave, not the 1,000 silent choices that led you there. They call it sudden, but there was nothing sudden about your decision. It was built brick by brick, moment by moment. Every time your worth was overlooked, your effort unnoticed, your heart mishandled. And eventually, the pain of staying outweighed the fear of leaving. That's where mastery begins, not with noise, not with revenge, not with rage, but with stillness, with the simple, powerful decision to no longer be available for what breaks you. You don't walk away because you don't care, you walk away because you finally do, because you've realized that your energy is currency, and you've been bankrupting yourself for people who never intended to pay you back with the same love. You've outgrown the need to be chosen by those who never truly saw you. You've stopped auditioning for approval that always came with conditions. You've learned that some doors are not locked, they're just heavy, and they require strength to pull open. But once you do, what waits on the other side is not emptiness, it's clarity. The kind of clarity that doesn't come when you're surviving in toxic environments. It comes when you reclaim your voice, your values, your vision. When you stop explaining your worth and start honoring it. When you choose peace, not just in theory, but in practice. And peace sometimes means leaving the table where love is only served to keep you from leaving, not to nourish your soul.